Got a jam-packed episode of Carving Up Live on tap for you guys tonight. Very, very excited to get to it. Going to start, of course, with a great weekend of March Madness. I'm wearing my Tennessee Vols shirt, baby. We're going to the Sweet 16. Give a quick reaction to Tennessee, Virginia. You had St. John's, Kansas in on a buzzer beater. Vanderbilt and Nebraska almost ended on a buzzer beater. Some unbelievable games over the weekend. We'll touch on that to start the show. Get to LeBron James, who broke yet another record, and it might actually be one of his most impressive. I'll get to that in about 10 minutes or so. Also get to Jackson Smith-Njigba, who signed a record-breaking extension. He is now the highest paid wide receiver in the history of the National Football League, and kudos to the Seahawks for doing it right now. Get to that. Bleacher Report, I don't know how long this segment's going to be. It might take a minute. Bleacher Report came out with their top 15 purest scores. That's what they said in NBA history. They're out of their minds with many of their rankings. Get to that at the end of the show. Reaction to episode 8 of Love Story, which might have been my favorite thus far to this point. Get to all that on a jam-packed episode of Carving Up Live. So, as always, drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. I am Bryson Carver. Great to be with you on a Monday after a fantastic weekend. I mean, I'm feeling good. My Vols are going to the Sweet 16. I will be completely transparent. I came here on the show last week once the brackets were finalized. I said, the way the bracket broke for Tennessee, I don't think we're getting past Virginia. And we did. We were, I think at one point had a double-digit lead midway through the second half. Virginia comes back, takes the lead with under 2 minutes left. Name it, shows up. He scored no points, dealing with a knee and an ankle injury. I'll get to the Tennessee game in just a second. But I'm in a good mood with Tennessee. I'm in a really good mood with Florida getting knocked out of the tournament. It's beautiful, beautiful Sunday night for me personally. St. John's winning a buzzer beater. We'll get to all those on Carving Up Live today. Again, the record I was referring to in the Open, LeBron James, most games played in NBA history. It's not as impressive as like the scoring record. It's not a mile off of it. I'll discuss that. Kevin Durant not breaking a record per se, but passing Michael Jordan for 5th all-time on the NBA's all-time scoring list. Shout out to KD, two of the greats, LeBron and KD making history over the weekend. And then in response, Bleacher Report comes out with the list, top 15 purest scores ever. I have so many thoughts. You guys are going to want to stay tuned for about 35 to 40 minutes from now. Oh, I'm going to unload on this. I am angry at the man who wrote this article. Get to that at the end of or toward the end of the show. Love Story episode 8 reaction. Great stuff. Unbelievable acting performances on the parts of Paul Anthony Kelly, Sarah Pigeon. Get to that at the end of today's show. But first, it would be malpractice for me to come on this show and not lead with March Madness. So, unbelievable weekend in the round of 32. Before I get to the games in and of themselves, I had kind of a major big picture takeaway from the first round and really the second round is that I came out on, and it was more of an aside. I didn't do like a full segment on it, but I think it's become apparent over the last few years as NIL, which by the way, been in favor of NIL since before it was legalized by the Supreme Court back in 2021. That in the NIL era, Cinderella teams, upsets, 13 seeds over 4 seeds, that's kind of a thing in the past. That's not to say it won't happen. That's not to say you can't have a high point upsetting Wisconsin, but that's 12-5. It's surprising. It's not like, oh my gosh, UMBC, 16 seed, knocking out 1 seed Virginia, beating them by 20 points. You're just not going to see that often in college basketball moving forward. I mean, you look at the teams that are in the Sweet 16. We have 2 kind of surprising teams. One just because of who they beat and the other because of their seeding. Iowa, listen, we know about Iowa's women's basketball because of Caitlin Clark, but they're a 9 seed. It's shocking that they beat Florida. We'll touch on the game in a second, but it's not just, I can't believe they're in this spot. And the only double-digit seed left is Texas. Do you know the NIL money? Now, they mostly use it for football, but do you know the NIL money that school has? It's off the charts. It might be tops in all of Oregon might rival it, but I would say Texas is in the top 5 in terms of pure NIL resources that they can use. They're bound to field they got a great women's basketball team. They're bound to field at least a competent men's basketball team, and they're more than competent. They're in the Sweet 16 today. So the days of, the days of Furman shocking Virginia, or sorry, Virginia fans, UMBC, shocking Virginia in 2018, or the days of a Loyola Chicago with Sister Jean, God rest her soul, going to the Final Four in 2018. That's gone. That's not happening moving forward. Is that you have the best players for these schools. My Vols did this literally a year ago with Chaz Lanier, who played for kind of a mid-major school. Vols offered him a lot of NIL money, came to Tennessee, ends up getting drafted by the Detroit Pistons. Like that's going to be the reality, that if you are a 25 point per game scorer at a mid-major school at a program that doesn't get a lot of shine, you look and you're seeing some of these programs that are offering you legit money to have a chance to perform in the NCAA tournament, to have a chance to be in front of more eyeballs as it pertains to, the NBA scouts. I mean, let's be honest. Does Steph Curry stay at Davidson 20 years ago? Maybe not. Like that's a legitimate discussion. It's unfortunate for Davidson. It's unfortunate for some of these schools to lose some of these guys. It's a bummer. I get it. Many have argued that that's part of the charm of March Madness is these, look at this school with like 4 of their 5 starters are seniors and they've been together and they've been through thick and thin and here they are in the Elite Eight. I get that. But to me, the upside of that is the element of, hey, now that you've got the best players from these mid-majors going to these bigger schools, now the quality of play gets better. And that doesn't necessarily apply to this year as it pertains to the best talent, the Darren Petersons, the of the world, all the best players, the Nate Amons for Tennessee, the best players in college basketball, at Darius Acuff, who's unbelievable for Arkansas. Those are mostly freshmen guys, or those are all guys I mentioned are freshman guys. The Boozer twins, obviously, with the Duke Blue Devils. But as the tournament goes on, as we get to the Sweet 16 later this week and the Elite Eight coming up, next weekend, and especially in the Final Four moving forward, you're going to see the quality of play, which I've always argued on the show was kind of the only downside of college basketball. Like the reason it gets the ratings that it gets during March Madness is, of course, everyone's filling out their brackets. There's excitement. There's a million games going on at once, but there's a sense of urgency. Every single game's a game 7. Every single game is a win-or-go-home environment. And I've always argued on the show that the number one thing that sports fans or that consumers in general want, be it from their sports, from movies, whatever, any form of entertainment, sense of urgency. It needs to feel big. March Madness has felt big forever. It's not necessarily been because the quality of play is great. It's not going to be what the NBA is, of course. But I think now with NIL, which has drawn guys away from the G League. Remember that used to be a thing where guys like Jonathan Kuminga or Jalen Green would get drafted out of the G League to the NBA. Now those guys are going to play college basketball. Now the best players from mid-major schools, for better or for worse, depending on how you feel about it, are going to these bigger schools and giving them a chance to go deeper in the tournament. So there's more depth. There's better. The best players, rather than going overseas or going to the G League, they're getting the coaches like a John Shire, like a Rick Barnes, like what's my guy's name at Houston? Oh my gosh, Sampson. Is that his name? Shoot, yeah. Any of those coaches, you're getting the best coaches as opposed to a G League guy. Like that's a legitimate thing that guys can look forward to, so that they're more ready to go in the NBA right off the bat. And so that's my big picture take. As far as the games themselves, holy smokes. So let's start Saturday night. So Saturday night, you got Nebraska, who, again, I was genuinely shocked when I learned the other day that their win in the first round, first tournament win in the history of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, which we know aren't exactly a basketball powerhouse, to say the very least. First tournament win ever? Okay. Get a W. They play Vanderbilt, who I almost had going to the Final Four. I did have going to the Elite Eight. Actually, I had Vanderbilt beating Florida en route to the Elite Eight. You've got an opportunity, Vanderbilt, 2 seconds to go. Tyler Tanner. I mean, does history not repeat itself sometimes in sports, folks? Tyler Tanner's got a great look, as good as you can get at least, from half court. That baby rolls in and then comes out. I mean, I think every college basketball fan seeing that, that's Gordon Hayward 16 years later. For those that may not remember, 2010 national championship. Butler was kind of the Cinderella team. Gordon Hayward. Brad Stevens was the coach, and they run into the mighty Duke Blue Devils. Gordon Hayward's got a shot from half court to win it, and it almost goes in. Just barely rolls out. Literally the exact same with Tyler Tanner and the Vanderbilt Commodores. So you've got that. You've got a number of other games Again, Texas upsetting Gonzaga, not terribly shocking. Arkansas getting the job done against High Point. What's impressive, High Point's a legit team. Kudos to them, even though they were only played 2 games. Kudos to them on their very, very impressive run. You also have St. John's knocking off Kansas. So for St. John's, I'm looking at the box score right now, folks. For St. John's to win a basketball game over Kansas. This is Bill Self, Kansas. Darren Peterson, top 3 pick in the draft, Kansas. Shooting 36% from the field and 31% from 3. That's coaching. That is Rick Pitino doing Rick Pitino things. And just to see the kid who walks it off for him, Dylan Darling, who, by the way, not only was 0 for 4 from the field, 0 for 4 from the field, I guess from 3-point range, prior to the last shot of the game, he airballed all of them. And then hits the game-winning layup. Kansas was intentionally fouling, using their fouls to give to run down the clock, which was a smart strategy in theory. I think looking back, Bill Self's like, probably should have fouled them a little bit later than we did so that they wouldn't have had enough time. Dylan Darling wouldn't have had enough time to get down the court and hit the layup to win the game. But unbelievable finish for St. John's. I did have them going to the Sweet 16, so kudos to them. We're going to have, I believe, St. John's versus Duke on Friday, which is going to be a fun one. Duke's a 6.5-point favorite. Maybe take St. John's the points. That's a great defense. They did give Darren Patterson some problems, so that's something to look forward to. Also, you have my beloved Tennessee Volunteers getting the job done in a game against Virginia yesterday, 79-72. And listen, coming into a tournament, I didn't feel amazing about my Vols. Weren't very good closing games out. They lost a heartbreaker at home to Alabama, which they outplayed the Tide for the whole game. You saw Alabama looked last night. Holy cow. Kentucky, who themselves got blown up by Iowa State, who's Tennessee's next opponent. Kentucky won 2 games against Tennessee they shouldn't have. Tennessee just kind of blew it down the stretch. They haven't been a very good clutch team this season, in large part because it's a pretty young team. And Rick Barnes, the most success that he has in March Madness, in the NCAA tournament, are with the veteran teams, or with teams with Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield, Jordan Bone. Met Jordan Bone one occasion. Nice guy. With teams led by Dalton Connect, who is an older transfer player. Teams led by Chaz Lanier or Zakai Ziegler last year that got Tennessee to the Elite Eight before they lost to Houston. And so now you got a younger team, Jacoby Gillespie, Nate Ament, like a lot of young guys who either have been riding the bench waiting for their opportunity at Tennessee, or in the case of Ament, freshman at McDonald's All-American, looking for his opportunity to show himself to be a legitimate top pick in the NBA draft, to be a lottery pick. And for Tennessee to kind of weather that storm, the thing that shocked me the most is the fact that Virginia has been certainly a much better three-point shooting team than Tennessee, and they just went completely cold from downtown. You look at the numbers, shot 34% from three-point range. Tennessee down under 2 minutes to go. Nate Ament gets the free throw line, and Tennessee's able to close it from there. Ament hits his free throws, so does Gillespie, who's got unbelievable range. I think people are going to be excited to see him against Iowa State next round. But listen, my Vols have got Iowa State, Sweet 16. The Cyclones are 4. They should be. Again, you saw what they did to Kentucky yesterday. I think Tennessee's better than Kentucky, but that's still something to look forward to. Big 12 was the best conference in men's college basketball this year, so it's going to be a tough challenge for Tennessee. But if there's one thing you can count on with Rick Barnes, they're going to lock you down the defensive end. So you had that. And last but certainly not least, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. You had the Florida Gators, the defending national champions. And didn't exactly do so with this, dominant run like UConn had a couple of years ago. Like some of these great teams, some of those Villanova teams just ramming through squads. Now from the second round on, Florida, to their credit, they were great late, but needed some bounces to go their way. Well, you play with fire long enough in the NCAA tournament, it's going to burn you. And when you decide, for reasons I cannot comprehend, up to with under 10 seconds, I think about 8 seconds to go in the game against Iowa. Why the heck are you pressing? Well, why? All it takes is for one guy to beat the press. 8 seconds, you got plenty of time. Move the basketball, kick it out a couple times. Guy either gets an open layup or an open three, which is essentially, what happened. And then Florida decides to push at the floor. Kid decides to pass it to the big at the last moment. That's just, some of that is, this is a younger Florida team than you had a year ago, but you don't expect to see that from a national champion, a reigning national champion. So that was beautiful to see. Iowa getting the job done. Kudos to them. But Florida, listen, you look at the Sweet 16 teams, and it's mostly the usual suspects. It's Purdue. It's Arizona, Houston, Tennessee, Michigan, UConn, Michigan State, Duke. No Gators. It's just funny how that works out. So, excuse me. It's a beautiful thing to see with Florida getting knocked out of a tournament. All right. I want to shift to the NBA now because, and it didn't get a ton of fanfare. I'm not saying they had to stop the game because the only record that was broken was just by this man entering the game, starting the game, did LeBron James against the Orlando Magic on Saturday night. But LeBron James broke the record for the most games played in NBA history. Before we get into that, here's what LeBron had to say about passing Robert Parrish, who was the previous record holder after the game against Orlando.
It was a regular prep day. I mean, I kept it, the same as the previous, whatever, 1,600, whatever the record is. But I knew, once I stepped on the floor and the game began that I was breaking the record. And that's a pretty cool thing. I said it the other night. The best thing you can have for your teammates is availability. And I've tried to be available throughout my career, 2 decades plus, to my guys. And that's just a byproduct of it.
And there's the record right there. LeBron James now 1,612 games played. That passes the great Robert Parrish, who against 1,611. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 1,560. Vince Carter, 1,541. Dirk Nowitzki in 5th place, 1,522 basketball games played. And, I've been really, folks that may not know, diehard Warriors fan. Matter of fact, if I tilt the camera up a little bit, you can see a Warriors had an Andre Iguodala book, 6 Man. Very good book, by the way. Shout out to Iggy. Diehard Warriors fan. I'm in a very small group of people. Love the Warriors. Steph's my guy. And I'm also a big LeBron James fan. Despise the Lakers. Hell, I hate the Lakers. Love LeBron. Because I think for someone to put in the work to be that great over the course of 23 seasons, which, no one's ever played in history, is unbelievable. And it goes to something that I've said all season long in particular. Because we don't know if this is going to be LeBron's last year. My gut tells me next year is his final season. If I had to guess, it's probably in Cleveland. Depends on what the Cavs do in the playoffs and how the James Harden things works. By the way, it won't work because James Harden's a notorious playoff joker. We'll see how that plays out. Maybe he ends up in Golden State. I don't know. I think LeBron plays one more year beyond this. But I've said over and over this season that LeBron is playing for one reason alone. Folks that are saying, it's about the money. LeBron's a billionaire. According to Forbes, LeBron James is a billionaire. He doesn't need the money. He'll make money for the rest of his life. It's to compete for championships, and the Lakers are hot right now. They won 9 in a row. Luka's on an absolute heater. Luke Kennard hit the game winner against Orlando the other night. Lakers, because of their lack of defensive personnel, have a second-round ceiling. I maintain that. So if LeBron wins a ring, doesn't win a ring, does it really? In the minds of those who either are hard on the idea that Michael Jordan's the GOAT, same thing with LeBron James. A 5th ring with LeBron as the second best player probably won't change that for a lot of people. Rightly or wrongly, that's probably how it is. So it's not necessarily for the rings. It's not for MVPs. LeBron has been an MVP candidate in a while. He's obviously past his prime. It's not for stat accumulation, which people seem to be alleging LeBron just wants to push the scoring record as far as he can. He wants to beat Michael Jordan in a statistical argument, to which I could say, as somebody who thinks LeBron by a hair is the GOAT, there are more arguments than just stats alone that would compel me to believe Bron is over MJ. We can debate that another day. LeBron James is playing basketball because he still loves basketball. LeBron James is last week against the Denver Nuggets, late in the 4th quarter, diving for loose balls at age 41 years old, playing back-to-backs, on the road, is out here, again, breaking Robert Parrish's record. And again, what is remarkable about this, if you look at the other 4 guys in the top 5 for most games played, what were they in their final season? We don't know if this is LeBron's last year. Could be, could not be. Robert Parrish, great Robert Parrish, who had the record in his final season. Actually played for the Bulls. People don't know this. He won a championship with Michael Jordan in 1997. That's about what you'd expect a guy at the end of his career to look like. 3 points a game, 2 rebounds, half an assist. Played 9 minutes a game. He didn't get a lot of run on the floor with those 97 Chicago Bulls. If you look at somebody like Vince Carter, who retired, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, looked about how do you expect Vince Carter, I think, had the record at that point for the oldest player in NBA history. I think he was 42, 43. I think he still holds the record. Vince Carter, 5 points a game, 2 rebounds, not terribly efficient, 35% from the field, average about 14 minutes a game. That's what you expect a guy in his 40s to look like. Dirk Nowitzki, one of the greatest scorers ever. He averaged 7 points a game on 35% shooting and played 15 minutes a game. it's what you expect. It's past his prime. The guy with the best final season in history, indisputably, was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was still averaging double-digit points on 47% shooting, playing 22 minutes a game, which is still getting a solid bang for your buck for a guy in year 20. LeBron James this season, the man's 41 years old. No one's ever played 23 years. Just broke the record for most games played. He's still averaging 21, 5, and 6 on 51% shooting. And still playing 33 minutes a night at 41 years old. Like, this is, we can argue GOAT another day. I'm more so saving the GOAT conversation for after Bron retires, whether that's this summer, whether it's next year, whenever that may happen. I want to dedicate maybe a whole show just to the LeBron Jordan, 1 versus 2. Who's the GOAT? We can debate that another day. What one cannot debate, and I think this record to me solidifies it. No one has ever put more blood, sweat, and tears in the game of basketball as LeBron James. Not just in terms of pure games played, but in terms of why is he still, forget a good player, forget a very good player, still an important impact player for a team that has championship aspirations. I think misplaced, but they believe they can. Still puts the time in the gym, still takes unbelievable care of his body, still shows up in the biggest spots. You can count on him, in any case. He's always going to be efficient, always going to make the right play, what have you. I mean, the game earlier this year, which I love this for LeBron, he had the all-time record by a mile for most consecutive games scoring at least 10 points. And when he had a chance to do it against Toronto, in which if he had missed, they'd have gone to overtime and he would have broken the record anyway, kicks it to the corner for a game-winning 3 at the buzzer. Like, that's the kind of guy he is. I'm going to make the right play no matter what the case is. I'll live with the results. If that's for me, if that's for a shooter, if that's to defer to Dwayne Wade or Kyrie Irving or Anthony Davis, whatever that may, or Luka Doncic now, whatever that may be, I'm willing to go through that. And so it's the number one thing that I've always appreciated about this guy is the dedication to the game of basketball, the love for the game of basketball, the appreciation for the history of the game of basketball that LeBron has always exhibited. And again, for someone to be this committed, to be this deep in, 23 years, no one's ever gotten 23 years. And he's still, it was a controversy. Oh, should LeBron be an all-star? 20 a game on 50% shooting most years gets you an all-star bid. It just does, especially if you're on one of the top teams in the tougher conference, the West. If you're the second best player to a Luka who's on an absolute tear right now. Like, yeah, LeBron's an all-star. Dirk Nowitzki, they named him an honorary all-star his final season. They kind of did the same thing with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. They did it with Kobe Bryant. So, again, as far as the top 5 guys all time in games played, Robert Parrish averaged 3 points a game. Vince Carter averaged 5 in their final season. Vince Carter averaged 5 points a game. Dirk, 7. Kareem, 10. LeBron, 20. And he's still out here freaking catching against the Rockets last week, catching lobs, behind the bat or on the other side of the basket from Marcus Smart and slam it. Like, the guy's, he has a triple-double last week. He has a game where he misses 1 shot. The dedication to the game is unmatched. It is. We know what Kobe put in the game. Jordan, modern contemporaries like Kevin Durant, who's still great late in his career. Same thing with Steph Curry. Most games played, most minutes played, and most years played. And he's still an excellent player. He's still, I think, clearly a top 20 player in the NBA, which is insane. Only guy that matches it in another sport, if you want to use example, is Tom Brady. Now, Tom was, to me, even more impressive, where Tom was second to last year of his career. I thought he was still the best quarterback in the league. LeBron's not in that discussion, but to still be doing this at this age and stage of his career, absolutely remarkable. And shout out, tip of the cap to LeBron James. All right, we're going to take a break. We got some good segments when we come back. When we come back, only NFL topic of the day. This broke this morning. Jackson Smith-Njigba signs a record-breaking extension with the Seattle Seahawks. I'll explain what that's a very smart move for Seattle. People are going to freak out. Oh, the money. It's a very smart move by the Seahawks. Get to that after the break. And again, I don't know. I said it in the open. I don't know how much time I'm going to spend on this. It might be a while. Bleacher Report coming out with their top 15 purest scores ever. And even based on the criteria they gave, they're out of their minds. Get to that. And of course, a review. We've been doing this every Monday for the last month and a half. Review of episode 8 of Love Story. John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. Very excited for all of it coming up after this 1-minute break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. I appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. Before we get to any more business, did want to say, as we always do each Monday in the show, check out our Carving Up merchandise. If you want to wrap the show, we got hats, we got t-shirts, we got anything you could possibly imagine as it relates to merch. I got to tell you, spring being spring, it's some strange weather. Last week here in Tennessee, it's snowing. Yesterday, it feels like summer. It's 81 degrees outside. It's unbelievable. So, get some of our spring wear on the website. Scan the QR code right there. If you want to check out our other content creators on the grid, absolutely do so. We got stuff from the All Even Podcast, Metropolitan Report, Cowboys Can Fan Podcast, Saturday Morning Tailgate, Mike and Josh. Some awesome shows that we've got here in the Grid Network. Check out their merch as well. And if you want just regular Grid Network merch, we got that too. Grid Network, hats, t-shirts, the whole bit. Check all those things out. Scan the QR code on the top left corner of your screen to look at our Grid Network products. It'll take you directly to the Carving It Up merch, but you can look at the website and see some of our other content creators merch as well. Only NFL topic of the day. So this morning, without much fanfare, and it's amazing because they're the defending Super Bowl champions, but this does go to show you the power of, or I guess the lack of power, smaller markets versus bigger markets, is the Seattle Seahawks signed Jackson Smith-Njigba to the biggest contract in the history of any wide receiver in NFL history. 4 years, $168+ million per season. We can show you the average annual value of the top 5 highest paid at his position. You see JSN, $42.2 million. Jamar Chase, the only guy who's made $40 million a year, $40.2 to be exact. Justin Jefferson, $35 million a year. CeeDee Lamb, $34.0 million a year. My man DK Metcalf for my Steelers, $33 million per season. And the initial reaction, like, oh gosh, JSN's great. Offensive player of the year, led the league in receiving yards, all of it. Still, one breakout season. Is it worth giving up this huge? Listen, I'll be honest. I do have my biggest concern for the Seahawks next season. Yeah, they lost a bunch of defensive starters in free agency, but such is the price of being a great team and winning the Super Bowl. And given that this is a well-drafting team, that Mike McDonald is a defensive coach, they'll replenish those guys on the defensive side of the ball next year and as time goes on. My concern is, okay, Kubiak's gone. Kubiak now, goes to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. How's that going to affect Sam Darnold? How's it going to affect JSN? They lost Kenneth Walker in free agency. That does concern me a little bit. However, a guy who's this fast, who's this much of a route technician, who's got that, as great of hands as he does, big game player, that to me, it's a no-brainer. For a couple of, for a few years. One, because he's an awesome player. Number two is because you get out ahead of your division rival. Listen, we got a full-on, with the exception of the Arizona Cardinals, you got a full-on arms race going on in the NFC West. Okay, the San Francisco 49ers add Mike Evans. They're trying to win right now. Okay, the Los Angeles Rams get 2 former KC defensive backs, one of them being, I think, one of the 5 best at his position in Trent McDuffie. They're saying, we're going all in. Seattle's lost starters, but they're saying, we're going to continue to keep and replenish our roster, keep the guys that helped get us to this point. Jackson Smith-Njigba being one of the most important guys to getting them to winning a Super Bowl. What this does, what other wide receiver was in Jackson Smith-Njigba's draft class in 2023? I'll give you a hint. It's within the division. I'll give you another hint. He's awesome. My third and final hint. He's Puka Nacua. Price just went up for Puka. So now the Rams, they're paying Stafford. They're paying Devontae. They're paying Trent McDuffie. Now they have to play Puka. They're going to, obviously. He's one of the 3 best receivers in the sport. But now they're going to have to pay him more than was expected. And if you think about this, too, from Seattle's perspective, and I've argued this 4 years. I've argued in favor mostly of Dak Prescott when people are like, oh my gosh, this contract is crazy. And I've always said, yeah, in 3 years, he won't be one of the 10 highest paid players at his position. Like, you get the value, you look at the value in the future. You don't pay a guy for what he's done, you pay him for what you believe he's going to do for you. Seattle obviously believes, with good reason, Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's only 3 years into the league, is just going to get better and better and better. They're locking him up long term. But look at the list again. Look at the highest paid receivers in the league. DK Metcalf, 33. That honestly, that feels about right. But if you're Minnesota and Justin Jefferson, you got to get your quarterback right. You're hoping Kyler Murray's the guy. That's I don't want to say a bargain per se, but close to it. Justin Jefferson's arguably the best receiver in the sport. And he's the third highest paid player at his position. By offseason's end, he'll be the fourth highest paid player at his position. As time goes on, the average annual salary of receivers is going to go up. He'll be making $35 million a year. Same case you can make to a lesser degree with a guy like CeeDee Lamb. As time goes on, you can make the same case for Jamar Chase. It's the same reason that I argue with the Cincinnati Bengals that, yeah, you keep Jamar. That's a no-brainer. Higgins is great, but you had in 2024 Burrow, Higgins, Chase all career years, and you went 9-8 because your defense was trash. And they said, you know what we're going to do? Triple down. Bring back obviously Burrow was already under contract. We're going to sign Chase and Higgins, and they got worse because Burrow got hurt and their defense was even worse than it was the year prior. You don't need two great high-paid receivers. That's why I argue with the Dallas Cowboys, who I think have had a very good offseason. They undo all of that if they pay George Pickens. I've seen some Cowboys fans talk about, shout out to my guys at the Cowboys Camp Fan. Great dudes, great podcast. Check their stuff out. But I saw them talk about what does this do with George Pickens' contract? Who obviously the Cowboys have franchise tagged him. Now the high mark for paying a wide receiver, the highest price, $42 million a year with JSN. Yeah, I think it would be organizational suicide to pay a guy like George Pickens, who's just as talented as those guys in the top five, but temperament, hit or miss, effort, which really matters to me, I think matters to well-run franchises, hit or miss, and production, as a result of both of those things, depends on the Sunday or the Thursday or Saturday, whatever the case may be. You can rely on CeeDee Lamb if you're the Dallas Cowboys. So learn from Dallas's perspective, learn from Cincinnati's mistake of paying two guys. Listen, you don't lose George Pickens for nothing. That's a mistake for the organization. You franchise tag him, and you see, can you prove to me, because you didn't last year, can you prove over the course of a season, there'll be ups and downs, is your temperament, is your mood going to ebb and flow based on how our season's going? Is your approach, is your effort going to change based on the outlook of our season, good, bad, or indifferent? And then as for the Seahawks, getting out in front, we know the Seahawks are a well-run franchise. John Snyder's an outstanding GM. McDonald's a great coach. To get out ahead is to pay JSN right now. Let's get him locked up before the Rams have to pay, or before the Rams do pay Puka, which they're going to this offseason. Really smart move by the Seattle Seahawks. And I think this was people are going to look at, it's a lot of money. He had two really good seasons, an unbelievable year last year. The highest paid receiver. Yes. Not just in terms of trajectory, but in terms of we're in a competition with the team that gave us the biggest problems last year, the LA Rams. This gives us a slight advantage because now the Rams got to pay Puka more money. By the way, he'll be worth it. You can make a case Puka's the best receiver in the league. But if you're Seattle, for the long term, you get equivalent production with JSN for less money. That's good business. Okay, let me take a drink of water for this one. I don't get mad often. I like to think of myself as a pretty chill, even keel guy. I try to be that way. And so when I do get mad, it's for good reason. And I got mad in a sports context over the weekend. So it started, this thing I'm about to mention didn't make me mad. I was quite happy for the guy that did this. This weekend, Kevin Durant passed Michael Jordan on the all-time NBA scoring list. Passed him for the fifth most points scored in NBA history. And if KD plays long enough, honestly, he can probably get into that number 3 spot. He won't catch Kareem, and he obviously won't catch LeBron. But KD, if he continues to, he's still averaging 25, 26 a game. If he still continues to play at this pace, he can get to third all-time in scoring. And KD isn't slowing down anytime soon. This part was great. And so hear what KD said about passing Michael Jordan, and then we'll get to the point that made me mad.
So I've been inspired by all of these players that I'm either coming close to or passing up, and MJ is in the world of his own. He's in a planet, a galaxy of his own, and somebody that I look up to, respect, and who basically shaped the game for me, So grateful for everybody that invested in me, on my friends, family, teammates, coaches. I couldn't be here without them.
Great. Like, we're all happy for Katie. It was dope to see two of the legends of the game from, the same generation, basically. LeBron break the game's played record and still is playing in an exceptional level. And KD also playing an exceptional level, passes MJ on the all-time scoring list. Like, it's obviously Jordan's not the all-time leading scorer, but there is this, man, that's Jordan. He broke one of Jordan's records. There's an aura that comes with that, and there should be, based on the career that man had. Here's the part that made me mad. Bleacher Report, who I think they're great in a general sense. And I'll call the man out by name. This isn't a personal shot. This is just a vehement disagreement with this article. Andy Bailey writes an article, I'm looking at it right now, for Bleacher Report, ranking Kevin Durant and the NBA's top 15 pure scorers of all time. I'm down with that discussion. Obviously, he even admits in this article, it's no list like this can be truly objective. We're all going to use different criteria of some sort. But we organized it in graphic form on this show, using our graphics for the show. This is how the list went. So we'll go from 15th to 1st. So the top 15, according to Andy Bailey of Bleacher Report, the top 15 purest scorers in NBA history. We'll go ahead and show you the list from 15 on up. Karl Malone is 15 on up. Karl Malone, Donovan Mitchell, Shaquille O'Neal, Kyrie Irving, Giannis Antetokounmpo. From 10 to 6. Kobe Bryant, Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, George Gervin, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And then the top 5. LeBron James, Joel Embiid, Michael Jordan, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. From 15 to 1, according to Bleacher Report's Andy Bailey, those are the top 15 purest scorers in NBA history. Now, I'm reading this article right now. This is essentially the criteria that he used. If you take the top 100, I'm reading this is exact quote. If you take the top 100 players in NBA history by points per 75 possessions with a minimum of 10,000 minutes and sort them by the average of their ranks in that number, relative true shooting percentage, which for those who don't know, the player's true shooting percentage minus the league average at the time, and free throw attempt rate, you get an order that nearly passes the sniff test. But since no list like this can be truly objective, we added a lot of weight to the scoring average and very little relative true shooting percentage, thus making the free throw attempt rate the smallest part of the recipe. I'm going to say something that will shock you guys. For anyone that has watched the show for any length of time that knows how I feel. I mean, you don't have to watch the show for any length of time. Look who's behind me. Look at this canvas right behind me. For those that are listening to the show on Spotify or where have you, that's Steph Curry hitting his iconic game-winning shot against the Oklahoma City Thunder back in 2016. He is my favorite NBA player of all time. He is the reason I fell in love with basketball. Steph Curry is my favorite professional athlete ever. Probably will never be surpassed. Having Steph Curry, and I think he's, by the way, great human being, father, husband. Love this man. Having Steph Curry as the greatest pure scorer of all time is lunacy. Here's why. Number one, I agree. There's this discussion, you see it on NBA Twitter, ethical hoops. It more refers to the dynamic between how Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets his 30 and how Steph Curry gets his 30. Shai relies on a lot of free throws, but I've argued in Shai's defense, Shai can get to wherever he wants on the floor. He's not as reliant as James Harden needed to be in James Harden's prime, getting to the line. That's why it drives me crazy when Shai foul baits. And Steph Curry, who free throw attempts to free throw attempts, it's not even close. And in terms of the whistle Steph gets, it's ridiculous. Steph gets it from threes, getting to the lane, mid-range jumper, not that much from the free throw line. In fact, the time Steph has gotten to the free throw line double-digit times, I think he hit 18 of 19 free throws in one game. That's his career high, 62 points. No surprise that that coincides. So free throw percentage, according to Andy Bailey, who wrote this article of Bleacher Report, isn't that important. They're not free throw percentage, free throw attempts. Steph Curry for his career averages 24.8 points per game, on 47% from the field and 42% from three. Very efficient. 47% for a guy 6'3" is very efficient. 24 a game, 42% from three. He'll get higher, but Steph Curry's 20th all time on the NBA's all-time scoring list. It is highly unlikely he will break into the top 10. So that's my first aspect of it. I love Steph. He's obviously indisputably the greatest shooter in the history of the league. He's, I think, indisputably one of the 10 greatest players in the history of the league. Calling him the most pure scorer, if free throw percent or free throw attempts is your, the bottom of the list in terms of importance, is crazy town. Show the list again. Kevin Durant at number 2. Honestly, I really don't have that much of a problem with KD at 2. You're talking about KD's average, first career 27 a game on 50% from the field. Like that's about as efficient as it gets. KD's the king of efficiency. Okay, and then you go down the list, put that graphic back up. You look at the list, Michael Jordan. Well, Jordan averaged 30 a game on similar efficiency to KD. Like, yeah, Jordan in the top 3 pure scores. Yeah, of course. The mid-range, getting to the free throw, or getting the free throw line, it got to the rim almost at will, greater than any guard we've ever seen in league history. Jordan makes sense. Joel Embiid, by the raw numbers, it's like, well, he's won scoring titles. He's been efficient in doing so. I am in LeBron at 5. LeBron for his career averages 26 a game on 50% for the field. LeBron belongs in the top 5. Here's where I am flummoxed. Top 15 pure scores in NBA history. And this is yet another example of just blatant disrespect of, to me, one of the 3 greatest players in basketball history. Where on God's green earth is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar on this list? Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for most of NBA history, was the all-time leading scorer. From, I think it was 1984 to 2023. So 39 years. All-time leading scorer in NBA history. So that's got to count for something. He shot about 55% from the field in his career. Won multiple scoring titles. Average about 20, I think it was 24, 26 a game. And had the most unstoppable shot in the history of basketball. The skyhook. And you mean to tell me that Donovan Mitchell, that Kyrie Irving, that, and I love this man, Steph Curry, that they're more pure scorers than the guy who had the most points ever for the longest period, by far, in NBA history, majority of the league's history. That man had the all-time scoring record. Longer than anybody, by a mile. Most unstoppable shot, a walking 25 a game on great efficiency. And Karl Malone, respect to Karl Malone, 3rd all-time scorer. Karl Malone's a more pure scorer than Kareem freaking Abdul-Jabbar? What, just because he didn't shoot the 3? Listen, the 3-point shot matters more now than ever. Unless, I've said this multiple times, in the modern game, unless you're Giannis and you are borderline unstoppable down low, you kind of have to be able to shoot the 3. You just do. But just because Kareem didn't, now he's not even top 15 all-time in scoring? Or top 15 in terms of pure scores? What are we doing? Put up the list back one more time. Let's look at 6 through 10. So if free throw percent or free throw attempts don't matter that much, why is Shea at 6? And Shea belongs on this list, by the way. Shea this year, I think Shea's the MVP. He's averaging 32 a game on 55% from the field. Like that's incredible efficiency. Almost 40% from 3. But free throw attempts, getting the line on a consistent basis, few guys in the history of the league are better than that, than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And he's 6th. And that's, by the way, again, that's the lowest on the totem pole as far as, according to this article, on how they judge the top 15 pure scorers in NBA history. So Shea's very efficient for the field. For his career, fine. I wouldn't say efficient. Fine from 3-point range. He's gotten better, but for his duration of his career, fine. And for the free throw line, it's a ton of attempts. Which, that's his game. But you say it doesn't matter that much. And yet you put Steph Curry number 1 and Shea Gilgeous-Alexander 6th. So it doesn't matter with Steph enough to put him at number 1 on this list. It doesn't matter with Shea, but we're going to put him at 6th. Ahead of the likes of Luka Doncic, George Gervin, the Iceman, Shaq, Shaq, just by definition of being Shaq, was efficient because couldn't stop him in the paint. What are we doing? And I'll be honest, I know a lot of people, this is going to make some fans, I probably piss off my fellow Steph Curry fans. Probably about to piss off some Kobe Bryant fans. Kobe obviously belongs on the list, by the way, just for the record. Kobe at 10 feels fair. It does. Kobe Bryant, first career average, 25 points a game on 44% from the field. For a two-guard, not great. And I know that to me is not enough of a knock to hurt Kobe badly in the all-time rankings. That's really part of I've talked about this a couple weeks ago. The charm of Kobe Bryant was that he took a lot of shots. He wasn't efficient. Final game of his career, in classic Kobe fashion, scored 60 on 50 attempts. Like that's what we loved about Mamba. Kobe was a less efficient Michael Jordan. Like that's what he was. Top 5, 4th all time, in the scoring list. The only guys ahead of him are Bron, Kareem, and Karl Malone. Kobe, by definition, belongs on this list. And then go to the bottom 5. Giannis at 11, I'm not mad at because, okay, he's averaged 30. He's averaged 30 a game a couple of years ago on 60% shooting. Like that's Shaq stuff. Okay. Kyrie Irving at 12. So here's where I'm at with Kyrie. Very efficient. Kyrie's extremely, efficient from the field. But Kyrie Irving for his career. This is true. For his career. Do we have this on the list right here? Yeah. Okay, I've got this in my notes. Kyrie Irving for his career. Averages 24 a game. Pretty good. 24 a game on, do we have it? Here we go. 47 from the field, 40% from 3. Efficient. But not always consistently efficient. Not always performing his best in the postseason. We remember some of those playoff exits in Brooklyn when they got swept in the first round by the Boston Celtics. We remember some of those games with the Boston Celtics in the second round, particularly against Milwaukee, when he shot, I think, sub 40% from the field. Got shut down by Giannis and the Bucks back in 2019. Kyrie's over Kareem. Kyrie's over Karl Malone. I'm not that mad at Kyrie being on the list. It's the guys he's ahead of that I think is the thing that I just cannot wrap my brain around. How in God's green earth is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar not on this list? Shot mid-50s from the field. Mid-20s for his career, for his 20-year career. All-time leading scorer for 4 decades. Most unstoppable shot in the history of the league. And he can't even make the list? Why? Why not? And it goes to a larger conversation that I've mentioned over and over, and this is the perfect time to bring this up. When we do the GOAT discussion, it usually starts with 2 guys, LeBron versus Jordan. And usually the next guy people mention, Kobe Bryant. And some, older basketball fans will say, well, what about Magic Johnson? Much older basketball fans will say, Bill Russell has 11 rings and Wilt Chamberlain scored 100 points in a game. And averaged 50 points a game in one season. And Gen Z fans are like, oh, what about Steph Curry? Kareem never gets brought up. He's a 6-time champion. He is a 6-time league MVP. He was the all-time leading scorer for 4 decades, had the most unstoppable shot in history, and won finals MVP with 2 different franchises. And won finals MVP, by the way, his 5th to last year in the league. So late in his career against the Boston Celtics in 1985. So, and by the way, Magic, who it's to me the 5th greatest player ever, Magic never won. Now, again, some of that was cut short because of his very unfortunate HIV diagnosis. Magic never won without Kareem. Kareem did win without Magic, with an older Oscar Robertson back in 1971. So I'm just saying that there are inconsistencies with this list that bother me from a criteria perspective. Nothing bothers me more than, 15 most pure scorers ever, and the guy who's 2nd all-time scoring had the record for 4 decades. Name's not even on the list. Karl Malone's on the list. Bron's on the list. Kobe, Durant. Steph's number 1. You won't find a bigger Steph Curry fan than me. Steph's 20th all-time in scoring. If free throw attempts getting to the line doesn't matter that much, according to this argument, which generally I kind of agree with, he can't be number 1. And then Shea, who does get to the line a lot, is at 6, even though he hasn't played that long relative to the other guys. It's like it's a wild list. Kobe, a lot of people were mad about the Kobe ranking on this list. 10 feels fair. He's 4th all time in scoring, averaged, shot 44% from the field in his career. Like, that's 32% for 3. Like, Kobe wasn't a vision. Kobe took a lot of shots. Kobe did score a lot of points. It wasn't just we'll say, it's not like the results didn't come with that. I'm blown away. Utterly blown away. No Kareem. What are we doing? If this was of the last, of course, George Gervin was, retired before Kareem did. Like, I can't. I can't do this. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is not one of the 15 pure scorers in NBA history. I was born in 2003. I didn't even watch Kareem. But just a baseline knowledge of NBA history is like, yeah, that guy's pretty good. And his name never gets brought up in the GOAT discussion. He's got more championships than LeBron. More points and MVPs than Jordan. I don't. What are we doing? I got your back, Kareem. If modern NBA media does it, gosh darn it, I do. All right, we're gonna take a quick break. I hate that conversation though came out of a pretty awesome accomplishment from Kevin Durant, passing MJ in the all-time scoring list. And by the way, one of my few things that I agree with in this list, KD at 2. Yeah. Okay, 27 a game, 50% from the field, can get literally wherever he wants on the floor to get buckets. Get to the rim. The only thing that has consistently bothered KD, particularly in the playoffs, is physicality. Is the idea this is one of the many reasons that Steph ranks higher than KD is Steph A is better at dealing with physicality than KD. B deals with double teams more than KD, and C deals with double teams better than KD. So look at the tape, much better at it. Much of as awesome as KD was in those 17 and 18 finals against Cleveland. Look at who the Cavs were game planning for. If you ran into Ty Lue on the street, ask him, who are y'all worried about? And he'd tell you Steph Curry. Rightly or wrongly, that's what he'd tell you. But yeah, you won't find many more, if you just want to use the word pure scores than Kevin Durant. So shout out to him for breaking MJ's record. Kareem, not top 15 all time pure score. I mean, what are we doing? If anything, he should be like in the top 3. Anyways, I'm going to try and cool off over the next minute. When we come back, last segment of the day, man, oh man. We've been reviewing Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette over the course of the last month and a half. This is a tough one. Episode's great. Not that the episode's bad. It was maybe my favorite. I'll get to that after the break. It was tough. It's tough to watch. Get to that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. So, over the course of the last month and a half, I have been going on air and reviewing Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette, which has blown up on Disney Plus, Hulu. It's the most streamed show. I know it's the most streamed show on Disney Plus. I don't know if it's the most streamed show in general. It wouldn't shock me if it is. But it's doing crazy numbers, the whole bit. And the final episode is every episode airs on Thursday. Final episode comes out this Thursday. I've debated whether or not to just review it right then and there the next Friday. We're going to do it next Monday just to give everybody time, over the weekend. Because the thing is, the show airs at like 9 p.m. Eastern. So some people are getting ready for bed or they don't have time to watch the whole episode, understandably so. So they just watch on streaming or on DVR or something over the weekend. So we'll wait for that, review the next or the final episode on Monday. And over the course of that time, we've done the first 2 clips. I've been posting on IG, YouTube, and TikTok short reviews of each and every episode. Kind of like this journey that we've all gone through in watching the show. So feel free to check those out. I'll post the episode 3 clip likely tomorrow night. So stay tuned for that. Okay. As always, nothing but spoilers ahead. Y'all, at this point, y'all probably know the drill. So episode 8, Love Story, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette. I want to start by saying this. Both stars, and we will get to them at the end of the show individually. Both stars of the show, Paul Anthony Kelly, who plays JFK Jr., Sarah Pigeon, who plays Carolyn Bessette. If you watch any of the, press tour in advance of the show coming out, I think around Valentine's Day, anytime that ask, hey, what was your favorite episode to do? Both like immediately, episode 8. Yeah, episode 8. That's a big one. You got to watch episode 8. It's a big episode. That's our favorite one to film. I'm like, okay, so you build up the hype for it. And you understand why after watching. And the reason I say that is this. To use Steph Curry, who I talked about earlier in the show. Steph Curry, if you ask him, what's the greatest game of your career? Or your favorite game of your career, I should say. He would say, Game 4, 2022 Finals against the Boston Celtics. He literally said that. I think he said it on JJ Redick's podcast years ago. That's his favorite game. Why? It's his greatest game. It's a game with the highest stakes of Steph's career with the exception of Game 7, 2016. It makes all the sense in the world for Paul Anthony Kelly, for Sarah Pigeon to say their favorite episode was likely their best performance, which it was. This whole thing, which I think it was the shortest episode of the series, they're the only 2 characters we see on screen. There's no Caroline Kennedy. There's no Lauren Bessette. There's no one from George, no one from the extended Kennedy family, nothing. Just those 2, start to finish. The episode begins, we ended episode 7 with her just in a full-on, understandable, justifiable crash out about they won't leave us alone. I can't live my life. And so it starts, she's kind of just wasting away, Carolyn Bessette, in their Tribeca apartment. There's multiple shots of her just kind of like leaning against the wall, smoking a cigarette, and not really doing anything. And so you start, JFK Jr. comes home and from a book event, and they've got like a radio speaker on, and it's playing No Ordinary Love by Sade, which was a song they danced to back in episode 4. So it was kind of a previous episode callback. And, it's kind of like, this romantic moment. And John, I've got it written down. John says, just kind of as an aside, quote, the way you used to walk into a room and just own it. And she says, used to? It's like, okay, it's just going to go downhill from here, isn't it? It was a poor choice of words on his part. And they're having discussions about, he's like, you need to get out of the apartment, and maybe we need to, she suggests, well, why don't we go on a trip? And he's like, well, we got all these things scheduled with the Kennedy family, with George, with what have you. Your birthday's coming up in January, and so you probably want to spend time with your friends and whatever. And so there's kind of that back and forth going on, whatever. She gets a call from her sister. And you don't hear her sister on the phone. You just you kind of see like this sense of unease, like, what's going on? She tells John, turn on the TV. Turns on the TV. And it's the breaking news reports of the crash that involved Princess Diana. And at this point, she hasn't been pronounced dead. Obviously, we know tragically she did pass. But Carolyn is just watching this in horror, seeing the parallels also. And she said this line in the show, and according to the book, Once Upon a Time, highly recommend it. The show's based off the book. And there's even photo evidence of this. Carolyn Bessette, when attending the funeral of Gianni Versace, was sitting directly behind Princess Diana just a month before that. Then a month later, she's gone. She's in a terrible car accident. And so she's watching the TV. John just needs an escape. He goes for a jog, comes back. By the time he comes back, they've pronounced Princess Diana dead. And she sees the parallels in the sense that, man, she did everything right. played whatever game the media wanted to play, smiled for the camera, gave them, access constantly, and they still chased her down and killed her in Paris. And she has, understandably so, a similar fear for her own safety. And you can see, again, both actors just did an unbelievable job. You can see all the thoughts and all the emotions going through John's head. And they show a shot on the news reports of Prince William and Prince Harry, who, of course, had lost their mom by that point. There were shots of them with their mom in the past, and she's like, oh, those poor kids, at least they've got each other. And she says something along the lines of kind of like you and Caroline had each other. And he's like, what are you talking about? She's like, well, you know what? And he said, I don't remember my dad being killed. He was 3 years old, I believe, at the time. Just because there's the iconic shot of him saluting his father's casket at the funeral, he doesn't remember that. And he doesn't want to talk about it. He talked, eventually he does open up about it. And he says, I didn't watch my dad die. I don't remember my dad dying. I remember watching how his death affected my mom. And he had a line, something along the lines of, I watched her die twice. She's obviously, back in episode 3, she died of cancer. But he referenced points where he and Caroline would be, playing with, their nanny, and his mom would be in like a dark room crying, understandably from the PTSD, because of course she was right next to her husband when he was tragically killed. And you just see and he even had a line to Caroline about this when they were discussing her parents' divorce, and she was like, oh, I was 7, so it didn't really register. And he said, well, trauma, something along these lines, trauma resonates or sinks in different ways, carries over eventually over time. And A, by not having his dad present, and B, the fact his dad passed in such a way right next to his mom, that stuck with her the rest of her life, understandably so. And that affected him. That affected his childhood. And so seeing the coverage of Diana, brought back some awful memories, some of the worst memories of his life. And he's like, oh gosh, he feels like he's lost these people's life. He's lost his dad early in his life. He's lost his mom. His cousin and best friend Anthony is dying of cancer, and he's like, I can't lose you, referring to his wife. And so we then go to, that's basically Act 2, which it's a 2-act episode. It's not that long. It's a year in the future, and it's a year in the future before they even show, because he's got his leg in a cast, because those that may not remember, John F. Kennedy Jr. broke his leg in, ironically, a flying accident not that long before his wife and sister-in-law lost their lives in a plane crash. And so looks like they just had a dinner party, and there's some tension there, and she brings up the fact about him having issues with her not having a job. Of course, she quit Calvin Klein right before they got married. She hasn't gotten a job since, in large part because of the media attention that's depicted in episode 7, of the media attention that it garners. She can't go anywhere without being chased down by the paparazzi. And she doesn't want to bring that to whatever company, be it Ralph Lauren or whoever else. And so there's that tension there that's been going on for multiple years now. And he's in his way of, I guess, trying to make her feel better or whatever. It's like, hey, my mother always loved books her whole life, and then eventually became, an editor. And she kind of cuts him off. She's like, you don't need to remind me again how impressive your mom was. Like, I'm fully aware. And she says, do you think your mom could have been who she was, as successful she was, in her career post being first lady, while being married to the most famous man in the world? And so there's a back and forth, and he even has a line, and this was a big mistake on his part. He said, you're lucky I didn't introduce you to my mother. She would never approved of us. And he tries to walk it back. Well, I would have listened to her. And damage has already been done. And then she reveals to him the conversation she had with her mother right before the wedding. She says, my mother was against our marriage right from the beginning. He's like, oh yeah, I know, the speech that she gave at the wedding rehearsal. She's like, no, she talked to me before that. And she's like, yeah, looking back, she might have had some points on that front. And so let me look at my notes to make sure. Okay. And there's a back and forth, and you'll have to watch the about 15-minute, 20 scene. It's unbelievably well written and well acted. And she says, I imagine it's tough to see how unhappy you make me. In reference to the fact that, they used to be inseparable and now he's gone and they don't even sleep in the same room anymore. And the marriage is clearly deteriorating. And he feels kind of emotionally detached from her. He's kind of saying, hey, George isn't doing, my magazine, George, it's not doing very well. I'm out here trying to save this thing from exploding after I failed at law. I'm failing at George. And now this marriage isn't going well. And I'm having trouble. I'm trying to do everything I can to save my best friend's life, Anthony, and he's dying. And it's a very difficult time for him individually. And so the fight continues, and she talks about how, people are supposed to change. And he was kind of lamenting about how she's changed. He's like, people's supposed to change, which I've said that many times on this show. And he almost is like a sense of pride and virtue. He's like, well, I haven't changed, which understandably makes her even madder. Like, yeah, exactly. Outside of me being your wife, same schedule, you living in the same place you've been living, hanging around the same people you've been hanging around, like your life, with the exception of being married to me, has not changed one iota. Whereas it's the exact opposite for her. She doesn't feel safe leaving the house. She doesn't have a career. She's quit Calvin Klein, which she obviously, at least by the counts of the show, she enjoyed working at in the PR role. So we continue. And do we have this? Okay. And he says, she somehow, maybe she relishes in the attention, the bad attention that she gets, so that she can make this victimhood like a part of her personality or what have you. And that really pisses her off. And she's saying something like, well, I guess you're America's son and I'm one more tragedy that you've got to endure. And that's kind of his breaking point. He goes upstairs and he begins to pack his bag. And which, devastates her. She's like, what are you doing? You're packing your bag. He's like, I'm just going to go to the hotel for a couple nights, be back, whatever. And it's the whole scene. There are aspects, me personally, I see Carolyn's perspective more than his, but I also do see his from a certain degree, and he kind of voices it. Okay. Failed lawyer, generally speaking. George is not doing well at all. My best friend is dying. And now my marriage is falling apart. And I feel emotionally detached from my wife. Like it's all falling apart. And he feels like everything, he even says, like everything I touch just gets ruined and all of it. And then from her perspective, he's detached. He is, and I even discussed this about episode 7. He's blowing off the media attention that they're getting. And that like, this will pass. And a lot of it is just I've been doing this my whole life. I'm used to this. Or I saw my mom deal with the media. And she's like, yeah, I'm a rookie at this. I have no clue how to deal with any of this. And by the way, there was not vitriol or hatred towards your mother or towards you the way there is towards me. And they used to call her just horrible things when she'd be out in public. And there's just a devastating moment where she references their wedding when they were having their, the first dance as a married couple. And it was during the wedding ceremony. He's like, I don't want this to end. She says, everything ends. And he says, not us. Well, she's referring to that. She's like, what happened to not us? And eventually when it's all said and done, he leaves. And, she's like leaning over the rail, sobbing. And the episode ends. Each episode prior to this has ended with, some sort of 90s track to like play the episode out. Not this one. It's just, you hear the elevator close because from their loft, the elevator close, and then it goes straight to the credits. So referencing what I said at the beginning of my review of this, it makes all the sense in the world for the two lead actors to say, this was our favorite episode to film. They got to show off their acting chops in the sense of the best of their ability and in a dramatic sense. It was just them. They were the only characters in this episode. And generally your best work tends to be your favorite work. By and large, there are exceptions, of course. And so I said last week that I thought the scene toward the end of episode 7, where Carolyn is just crushed at the horrible media attention she's getting and how it's affecting her personal relationships and whatever. I said then, I think that secured Sarah Pigeon an Emmy. This just solidified it. This might have secured Paul Anthony Kelly an Emmy of his own, which, by the way, I think according to Variety, they're the two favorites for their respective acting categories to win. I guess that the Emmys are in September, later this year. Understandably so. And so it is it's a heartbreaking episode. All of the good vibes and the happy 1990s soundtracks and the shots in New York State, like that, we'll see what happens at episode 9 this Thursday. That's mostly gone. It's over. We're getting to the sadder points of their lives and of their relationship. And so, listen, I'm excited to see 9. I'm excited to see 9. I'm also kind of dreading it because we obviously know how the story ends in real life, tragically. But just a writing masterclass and an acting masterclass in every sense of those two terms and phrases. And so, again, I can't say it enough. If you haven't watched the show, now's a good time. There's only one episode left, so binge the first day, and then episode 9 comes out, I believe, at midnight on Friday on Disney Plus, and then it airs 3 hours prior to that on FX. Unbelievable stuff. Salute to Ryan Murphy and the crew that put this show together, put this episode together. Salute to Paul Anthony Kelly. Salute to Sarah Pigeon. A+ stuff. Writing, acting, the real emotions it makes you feel because you know that something similar to this, interactions like this did happen in real life between these two real life people. Can't say enough about the show. And with that is all the time we have for today's episode of Carving Up Live. Be sure to check us out on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Facebook, Twitch, and on X. No March Madness games between now and then, but the Major League Baseball season officially begins opening day on Thursday. So we'll have some baseball, preseason predictions. So stay tuned for that. We've got Carving Up the Context, mock draft 3.0, all of it. Cannot wait. Stay tuned for all of it. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Hit that big red subscribe button down there. It helps the channel grow exponentially. Myself, the Grid Network, follow me. You see all my social media platforms down there. Carving It Up Podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Carving It Up Pod on X. You can also check me out on Twitch as well. We stream the show from Twitch. And then, of course, check out my YouTube channel, Carving It Up with Bryson Carver, and the network of which that I stream my show from, the Grid Network, GRYD, the Grid Network. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. Vols are in the Sweet 16. Kind of to my surprise a little bit, but I'm happy. I ain't complaining one bit. Let's shock the world and beat Iowa State on Friday night. Hope everybody has a great week. We'll see you guys on Wednesday night. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Again, don't sign Aaron Rodgers, Steelers, please. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.